Hello everybody, this is Tracy Chen and welcome back to my channel, My Great Australian Dream. As always, there has been so much happening in the Australian immigration world, so many changes, so many things to grasp and understand. But today we're going to focus on the 190 visa in Victoria and what has happened over this past, kind of 10 months since they've been open. It's been a very exciting year and so much has happened. So let's discuss it, summarize it. The purpose of this is to give you some insight so that in the new financial year, which is coming up very soon in the next couple of months, we at least have some idea of what's going on. Now, don't get me wrong, everything can completely change. Like compared to 2-3 years ago, the program has changed so much. But at least, it gives you some idea of what has been going on and some things to prepare for. Before I get stuck into it, don't forget to like and subscribe and share this with people who need it. If you want to get in contact with myself or one of our fantastic lawyers or agents, our contact link, email address, and phone number is below in the caption. Now, first of all, this video is just purely on the 190 visa, which is the skilled nominated 190 visa. This is a permanent residency visa. So if you are invited, you're successfully nominated, and you're successfully granted the visa, you'll be a permanent resident of Australia, which is what we all want. The ideal visa for a lot of people. When this visa is granted though, because it is state nominated, so Victoria invited you for this visa, you are supposed to stay in Victoria for at least 2 years after the grant. In fact, when you are nominated, there is a declaration form that you sign to say that you will stay here for at least 2 years. Now, the good thing is that most people do want to stay in Victoria. It's not too big of an issue, but life happens, things happen, and you may want to relocate. First of all, I would avoid doing that. So far, nothing has happened to people who have left the States, but if this keeps happening, the States have a right to withdraw the nomination even after your visa is granted. Now, a lot of people argue with me on this. They say that, on the visa, there's no condition or anything like that, but the state has nominated you, and in the declaration form, it does say that they have a right to withdraw the nomination. Now, if your nomination is withdrawn, then it can absolutely affect your visa. So the first choice would be just stay away from it, just try to avoid. Second of all, if it does happen, you can email the state and ask them. Most of the time you get a generic email saying that, you don't need to tell them and there's nothing they can do about it. And, that sounds very good, but also very scary in a way because you don't actually know what they're gonna do. So I always advise my clients to say, to me, I call it a moral obligation. But you get to stay in Victoria anyway. You get to stay in Melbourne. It's a dream. It's everybody's dream. So again, stick to it as much as you can. So this financial year, we saw a big shake-up in the migration program for Victoria. In previous financial years, you had to be working your nominated occupation, you had to be working in a critical sector, all that hoo-ha to be eligible to be invited. It was actually quite tough. And I remember a couple years ago for the 190 visa, there was only like 2,000 or 3,000 spots. But this year, there was 9,000 for the 190 visa. And then the state got allocated more spots toward the end of the year. And it was more like over 11,000 places for the 190 visa. And based on the numbers I've been seeing, I think they've been filling up those numbers. I mean, why would they allocate more numbers to the 190 visa if they weren't filling up the spots anyway? Now, as you know, for the 190 visa, there wasn't a certain occupation list that was eligible. They were open to all occupations as long as they were on the occupation list for the 190 visa. So you can refer to the legislation for that. They just followed that. It wasn't like they had their own separate occupation list like other states. So we saw a big variety of occupations being invited. This included marketing specialists, information and organizational professionals, civil engineers, ICT business analysts. It wasn't like the previous years where there was a strong focus on, your health occupations. So if you had one of those really different occupations, a lot of our clients actually got invited. It was actually really, really surprising. It's something I haven't seen for years. Advertising specialists, business analysts, management consultants, all a big variety of occupations were invited. It's actually very exciting. Now, they did introduced the new requirement of this annual salary. So people with a higher salary had a more competitive application. So most of our clients who had, over 100K, 90K, we saw that they got invited very, very quickly. The other requirement they were looking for is superior English skills. So if you had your 8 each for English, you had a very competitive application. They did even mention that even if you had a high salary and you only had competent English or proficient English, which is your 6 each or 7 each, it wasn't considered a competitive application. You really needed that superior English. So coming into the new financial year, regardless of how the rest of your application looks, one thing that you probably can work towards and actually practice for is that superior English. They want people that have the excellent English skills so they can dive right into the skilled workforce and contribute to Victoria. Points did play a bit of a factor. I must admit, I didn't have a lot of clients with really low points get invited for the 190, like your 65 or 70. I can't remember from the top of my head if we really had many, except for your teaching and health occupations, which I'll go to in a minute. And that's obviously because they were selecting people with superior English. If you get superior English, you have an extra 20 points. So of course your points are going to be high. So going into the new financial year, I would definitely say aim for at least 80, 85 points. The good thing is you don't need like a crazy amount of points. People like, oh, you need 95 or 100. Like we rarely had any clients with that many points. We had some, and I can't say always the high points got invited, but if you kind of like just aim for above your 85 points, I think that's a strong application as long as you have the superior English. You didn't need to be working in your nominated occupation. If you're working in a skill level 1, 2, or 3, you could claim your salary, which therefore helped your application because you had a higher salary. And our clients who are working in their nominated occupation or a skilled level job with a high salary, yeah, I could see that they were getting selected. But I can't say I saw it consistent across all applications. I do have applicants with very similar profiles. One is invited, one is not. And it kind of doesn't really make sense because shouldn't they be selecting it all consistently? But something to think about as well. We also had applicants who didn't have a job in their field. They were, for example, an accountant working as a bus driver, so couldn't claim salary, and they were still invited. They did have over 80 or 85 points though, so they definitely had the superior English. They're invited for the 190. So bizarre. It's insane. So regardless of what happens in the new financial year, if you are eligible to submit, just submit your application. Don't think too much into it. Like our client who's an accountant who was working as a bus driver, they definitely thought, oh, I don't have much of a competitive application compared to these people who are, ICT business analysts working in their nominated occupation. They were definitely concerned about the application, but they got selected. So you got to be in it to win it. Then towards the end of the year, they announced priority consideration for health and teaching occupations, your nurses, your doctors, your early childhood teachers, secondary school teachers. There was a pretty big list. Community service workers, welfare workers, and those applications were so simple and they were just invited so quickly. So as long as your occupation was on that list this financial year, our clients had 65 points, 70 points, no work experience. Probably some of them weren't even working in their field. Like we had ECTs that were just graduated, so they hadn't even secured a job yet. We lodged the application after they got skills assessment, invited within like 2 days, nominated straight after. It was very, very quick after they had lodged that application. So going into the new financial year, if you are any of those occupations, again, I still think there will be a strong focus. Reading all the information now, there's a huge demand. There's a huge skill shortage for your nurses, your teachers, people working in healthcare. So if you have an application or you are potentially eligible, prepare now. So come July, you can do it. So what do we do now? It's closed. The application portal closed as of the 5th of May. They have been selecting because we have already had a couple of rounds since then. Since the 5th of May, people have been selected. But this is the time. Don't slow down now. Get your application ready for July. So go do your English test. Go do your NATI. Get your skills assessment done. Some skills assessing authorities now, because there's so many applications, there is just such a huge backlog at the moment. ACS, Australian Computer Society, is taking up to 3 months to process the applications. So get your application ready, get everything drafted, get all your documentation ready. So like as soon as they open, you are ready to just read the requirements and submit it. This is not the time to slow down. So I hope that summarizes it for you. I hope you guys enjoyed that. In the next video, I'll talk about the 491 visa in Victoria, and then I'll move on to other states. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you, and see you guys in the next video.